Hi, John here again, and on this edition of Butterfly Formula, I wanted to talk about how creativity we tend to think of as requiring or needing outside the box thinking, but in reality, as I'm learning from a recent book from Drew Boyd and Jacob Goldenberg, they talk about how you really need inside the box thinking. So before I go further, I want to give special thanks to Scott Danzig of Luna Little Chomper. That's a photo of his furry friend there, and really appreciate him letting me to share a photo of lovely Luna. In any case, we tend to think of creativity as something wild that needs to be captured or tamed. And as I mentioned, Drew Boyd and Jacob Goldenberg argue that outside the box thinking is not only wrong, but keeps most of us from benefiting from being more creative in our lives. Their work, their work points out how creativity is really a skill that can be learned. Outside the box thinking became all the rage in the 1980s after a management consulting team used the now popular 9-dot box puzzle to illustrate their point that employees needed to look further beyond the obvious and try to think outside the box. While this seems like good advice, it is actually harmful because this goes back to our need to tame the elephant, which I've talked about before, and how by making things more concrete and clear cut rather than wide open and limitless. In other words, as Barry Schwartz points out in The Paradox of Choice, often having more choice actually keeps us from moving forward. Recently, Boyd and Goldenberg published Inside the Box, a proven system of creativity for breakthrough results, which shows case study after case study of folks who have used this methodology, whether they knew it or not. Although they break this down into 5 key thinking tools: subtraction, multiplication, division, task unification, and attribute dependency, I'd argue that in true Pareto fashion, 80% of the creative solutions come from using division. So that's what we'll cover in more detail here to apply some of the core principles. Basically, division uses the idea that by dividing a product and or its components and rearranging them, you can form a new product or solution with greater capabilities than the sum of the individual parts. By considering different structures either as a whole or individual components and dividing them into individual pieces, this allows you to rebuild them in new novel ways. For example, normally the airline check-in process was considered a linear process that would take at least an hour and stuff until Southwest looked at ways that the steps could be changed. In fact, this approach allowed them to accomplish 10-minute turnarounds while the industry standard was 1 hour. And of course, this was a while before all the things that have happened post 9/11, but they still keep things under half an hour though. But more importantly, the idea is not to look at limits as obstacles, but as opportunities to find creative solutions. Instead of looking at the few ingredients available in the kitchen, how can you create a new dish? I argue that some of the most popular recipes have their roots from simply using what the cook had available to them. Chicken Marengo was said to have come from Napoleon's chef foraging in town and creating the dish from what he could gather after the Battle of Marengo. According to legend, the emperor enjoyed the dish so much that he had it served to him after every battle. And later, when the chef was better supplied and tried to substitute ingredients, like adding wine to the recipe, Napoleon refused to accept it, believing that such changes would bring him bad luck. So next time, instead of trying to look outside the box, try looking at your situation not as limits, but as possibilities. What are some ways that you will be more creative by looking inside the box? Thanks again for watching or listening, and I look forward to your questions and comments. Um, Please, yeah, let me know how you, some ways that you can apply inside the box thinking to your own work and projects for finding more creative solutions. And be sure to, of course, to subscribe, whether follow me on Twitter or we have a list for keeping folks posted on upcoming blog posts and also on the YouTube, of course, you could subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much again.